Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to I-95.5 iSports. We haven't had an iSports program in just over a month, people, because, of course, Tony Lee and myself, we were in Beijing in covering the World Championship for just about 2 weeks. And then we know we had all the hula and the bula of the elections. And, of course, that really made it worse.
You
but
left me
nevertheless,
to do
and
rallies.
Yes, and instead, poor Roxanne was involved in electioning. Really not good news. But we're back to reality, people. Sports is alive, sports is back, and we're back here. And what better program to start Thursdays on and to start the month of September on than to talk with the national football coach who's joined us, Mr. Stephen Hart, returning from a reasonably successful game against, I say reasonably successful game because, of course, everyone likes to win, but Trinidad and Tobago ended up finishing 3-3 each, or whatever you like to call it, against Mexico following the 4-4 game previously in the Gold Cup. Stephen Hart has joined us not only to talk about that match, but to look into the future because the fixtures have been announced, and Trinidad and Tobago's first fixture in the World Cup qualifying will take place on November the 13th, which is Friday actually. Friday, November the 13th. It will be away to Guatemala, and then 4 days later, a crucial game. All games are crucial, but this is even, well, crucialer, if there is a word like that, and there is no word like that. And the point is, that's how important it is. Trinidad and Tobago play on November the 17th against the United States of America. It's been decided it will be played at the Hazley Crawford Stadium. The time already is 8 p.m. That's a game where we expect a full crowd at the Hazley Crawford Stadium because that game could tell us whether or not we will progress as winners or come second or not make it at all in terms of going forward. But Mr. Hart has joined us, and let me welcome Stephen Hart. Roxanne is, of course, alongside me. Roxanne, welcome.
Good evening. I missed you.
I
Mr. Hart.
missed you as well.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Hart, first, let's talk a little bit about Trinidad and Tobago's performance in the Gold Cup. Trinidad and Tobago performed in the Gold Cup. We reached as far as the quarterfinal. You had carried the team previously to the quarterfinal. Then we didn't seem to have a very good game against Panama, and we went out. Your thoughts after the Gold Cup, what are your thoughts? Or what were your thoughts, I should say?
Well, I think when we went into the Gold Cup, in all honesty, not many people gave us much of a chance to even probably get out the group. But as we progressed along, we ended up with the game against Mexico. We have to be realistic in the analysis of the game. I mean, both teams were playing to win the group, but both teams had already qualified. So it made for a bit of adventure, a bit of excitement, and the game ended up, as everybody know, 4-4 with us really showing some quality in the second half. But after the game against Mexico and measuring the weight of players and all of that, we only had limited rest compared to Panama. And then, of course, we went into a game in extreme heat, and we never really fully recovered. And all credit to the players. They took it to the penalties, and you might as well flip a coin once you reach there. But if I'm being honest with the assessment, we didn't play as we should have been capable of against Panama. But I've always said that our team is a team that we have to have a minimum of about 8 players playing at the top of their game, and we were below the standard on the day.
In terms of the penalties, there are some that believe that the Trinidad and Tobago team didn't seem to be prepared for the penalties. They appeared for those of us watching on the television, because we covered the game via television on that Sunday. There seemed to be indecision as to who was going to take the penalty. What was happening? Well,
no, I mean, the first 5 kickers kicked, and it was what it was. And then we were like you. We are spectators on the side.
Yeah.
And of course, in a situation contrary to popular belief, players cannot hear you.
Right.
You know, because of the crowd.
Yeah.
And one of the players that it was him to kick. He didn't want to kick.
Okay.
And he was pushing someone else to kick, and he just didn't want to kick. And there's nothing you can do about that by that time. He let the person kick. They missed, and then he stepped up and kicked and scored. So it was just one of those things. The players, nerves, whatever it is. I mean, there are a lot of big players that refuse to kick penalties, and in front of 80,000 people and kick in to win it. takes a lot of nerve.
But in terms of, and of course we all know what they're talking about, isn't there like a prescribed order that has to be given after the first 5 kicks? So in other words, or
yes,
no,
yes, there is, but it could change after the 5, eh? And
and so that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean the day before nobody missed. Even the keepers kicked penalties, nobody missed. But you had no crowd.
Correct.
Yeah, they were relaxed. We tried to create some kind of competition and put some pressure on them. But on the day when you are actually kicking, it's as I said to them after, only the brave could miss. Only those who said I would like to kick could miss.
What did the players say to you after?
Nothing. There's nothing to say. I mean, you step up, you kick a penalty. Listen, I've seen all the greatest players miss. From Diego Maradona, Platini, Baggio, you name it.
Yeah,
they've missed. And as I said, only the brave can miss. And the player that put his hand up and said, I would kick, I give him credit for that. And if he misses, and to be fair, the last miss, so to speak, was not a miss, was a good save. Good save.
So moving on from that, Trinidad and Tobago's next game against Mexico. Is it that Mexico wanted to play us so much again? Was it a revenge?
No. The game was already planned before.
Okay, so it was planned before the 4, because a lot of people felt that this game was as a result of the 4-0, as if Mexico wanted to say, we have a new coach, we want to put things right. This coach wants to put things right.
No, unfortunately, the reality of countries like Mexico, United States, Costa Rica, etc., is they know who they play in 6 months in advance. Their program is completely laid out. So we knew we were playing Mexico before the World Cup.
So going forward now, let's go forward. Let's look ahead. There's another warm-up game due against Panama.
Yes.
How important is that?
Well, I don't really go, crazy when we win a game, and I don't really panic when we lose a game. The thing about warm-up games, friendly games, exhibition games, whatever you want to call it, is you go into the games with particular aims and objectives in mind. And the players know that. The public don't know that. Of course, we're playing to win the game, but we are also playing to build a team to play in the game that really matters. We didn't have a good build-up to the Gold Cup. And I'm not saying that you always have to have perfect preparation, because some countries have as good preparation and better, and then on the day, on the tournament, they fall flat. Look at the United States at the Gold Cup, and take a look at Holland at the moment. Right? But what we try to do with the exhibition games is to work specifically on things we would like to do. Right? So we will treat this game as an away game. And of course the selection, I don't know that yet. It's according to who's healthy and all of that. And hopefully we can get a second game back home, which would mimic what we actually have to do, travel to Guatemala and then come back home and play the United States.
All right, so that leads us now to the World Cup qualifiers, and the important point that you just made, fitness. A lot of the Trinidad and Tobago players, the new season will only start tomorrow in terms of the locally based players. Yes. Is that going to be an advantage or disadvantage heading now into games in October and November?
Well, I think better they're playing than not playing, because it's one thing to be fit, but to be match fit, it's a lot different. The sharpness of the mind in playing. So it's very important that they are playing. It would have been nice if they had a full month and a half or 2 months under their belt, but it is what it is. And hopefully they'll be ready with the 2 internationals. Well, if we get 2 we're trying to get a second game. Hopefully they'll be ready for the game in Guatemala, because I think that is going to be a very, very tricky game. Not I think, I know, because Guatemala have been traditionally very difficult to play at home. The crowd is extremely hostile. The pitch, you never know what you are getting. So it's crucial that we go into the game in the right mindset.
Good, bad, or indifferent. Although I know that it has already been, as you said, set and already cast in stone. But the fact that Trinidad and Tobago's first game is away to Guatemala, would you have preferred a home game to start?
Would have been nice. But I mean, at the end of the day, you have to play everybody. It's home and away. You go and you do the business. You know what I mean? That's what it's going to take. If that's what it's going to take to get to the hex, then that's what you have to do. It makes no sense if, but, maybe. I don't pay much credence to that. It would have been nice, but it's not. You have a reality to deal with. We just focus on that and get on with it.
Trinidad and Tobago's 3-1 with victory against the Gold Cup. In the Gold Cup against Guatemala. Any relevance?
Not at all. I mean, if you look at Jamaica's performance in the Gold Cup, and then they really struggled against Nicaragua.
Yeah.
International football is so much different from club football because the environments change. You have to travel. You have to fly. The environments are very, very different, and you play so irregularly that you are largely dependent on the form of players. So I always say either you're in good moments or you're not in good moments. And you're so dependent on players. One, the players are playing regularly for the clubs. I think that is essential. And then two, they are in good form. Because if they're playing for their clubs and they are struggling, it tends to prey on them mentally. And then they come to you not at their best because their minds are on their club, on their life at the club, and now they have to switch completely, and they have the pressure of the country on their back.
How you deal, Mr. Hart, with the situation whereby we have a group of locally based players, obviously, and of course you use players from outside of Trinidad and Tobago. What has been challenging in doing that, in getting a balance?
Well, not much. I think. Sometimes the biggest challenge is the level of competition in the local league, because you only have, X amount of true games that are challenging, and that's a reality. If you look at countries that have small leagues, they go through the same problem. But if they have a huge majority of their players that play outside of the country, then you find the level of their national team is very, very high, like Iceland, for example. They have a lot of players that Iceland produces the most professional football players per population in the world, and they have 350,000 people in the whole country, right? But if you look at their national team and where their players are playing, you'd be shocked, right? So you find now they have a good generation. A lot of them are playing abroad at a decent level, and now they've qualified for the Euro. So the biggest thing with the local league is that you have good games, but not enough of them.
And now let's talk about the local players. Tomorrow the Pro League starts. As you quite rightly mentioned, a lot of your selection will be based on the fitness of the players and of course their form. What would you tell the young players playing in the Pro League who maybe have not played for Trinidad and Tobago as yet? Do they still have a chance?
I think every coach that coaches Trinidad and Tobago wants the best team. If you are performing, and I think you can bring something to the team, whether it be depth, whether it's a starting position, whether it's a tactical variation, you can bring something different, then you'd be selected.
In the past, in Trinidad and Tobago's, in teams in the past, a lot of persons used to believe that the goalkeeping was one of our major strengths. We had Creighton Ince, of course, Shaka Hislop, Kelvin Jack, big strong guys. Within recent times there have been questions about the goalkeepers we have. John Michael Williams has demonstrated that he can, of course, do the job in the past. And do you feel the depth is there though in terms of goalkeepers in Trinidad, not only from playing in Trinidad and Tobago, but overall in terms of goalkeeping in Trinidad and Tobago?
I think it's a player development issue that needs to be addressed. Right now we have the two keepers fighting for the position. Marvin Phillip, who I think is an exceptional goalkeeper. You have John Michael Williams, and you have the two of them, and then we had Fonset with us as a third goalkeeper. But as I looked at all the younger leagues that I go to and the youth teams, I think goalkeeping needs to be addressed in terms of player development. And I mean, in general, I think player development needs to be addressed because we have a lot less players playing abroad than we did in 2006.
Is that a disadvantage that you feel that could hurt us? Because in terms of, if one considers, many may not agree, but many of us consider the Premiership to be one of the top leagues in the world, even if the Spanish teams normally always win the Champions League or the German teams. We don't have a player in the Premiership right now. Is that a disadvantage for us?
Well, I don't necessarily think they have to be in the Premiership.
Okay.
They need. It'll be nice for them to be in one of the top leagues in the world. And I'm a firm believer in competition. Competition for me breeds excellence. You cannot be running, 10.9 and winning races, and then come race day with a field that's running 9.6 and think you're going to be in the top whatever. The better competitions that players can play in, their standard will raise. And if you have to fight day in, day out to be selected, then you bring that personality, that mentality to the team. And then, of course, everybody has to fight, because football has a paradox in it. You have to, all of you are competing with each other for a position to get picked on the 23. And then you're competing with each other to get selected on the 11, and then you have to turn around and play with each other, So it's what I call the football paradox, And for me, the only way to raise standards is to have extreme competition.
Do you have that for most of the positions now?
No.
What can be done to change that?
I was hoping you would tell me here tonight. No, in all seriousness, I mean, I'm working on it, man. Yeah. I have a great staff, and we're working on it diligently. We're beating the bushes. We're testing people. Once I identify you to come to the national team, then I start looking at your habits, off the field, on the field. Do you eat right? Do you sleep right? How do you train? Can you pick up things quickly? I don't have a lot of time. Can you pick things up quickly? All these things you look at. And then most of all, are you willing to compete? Because if you're not willing to compete against somebody from your own country to get on the team, I can't depend on you to compete against the United States. You're going to fall by the wayside, or you're going to hide. So we try our best to create that competition and make sure it's fair and lively, and hopefully somebody rises, as has been happening with the teams.
A lot of persons, including myself, and I'm sure Roxanne will let her come in now as well, a lot of persons, including myself, believe that the team has developed a lot under Stephen Hart. We have seen moments, and in the past we have seen moments of good plays from trying to be a good team, but we've seen a lot of consistency from this team. Before I bring Roxanne in, what has led to that consistency? Because, and I say that only in terms of, even though there are a lot of inexperienced players, because in the Gold Cup, for instance, Kevin Molino wasn't there, and he was considered one of our major stalwarts and such an influential midfielder, which we don't have, midfielder stroke forward, as the case may be. And yet still we saw players rise to the occasion. What has led to that?
It's difficult for me to believe I have all the answers to that. I mean, it's not just Stephen Hart. Of course, I have an excellent staff, and they have a good eye, and we've been diligently working at it. But a lot of it has to go down to the belief of the players. They have come together. They believe in what we are doing. They've bought into what we are doing, and they are making demands of each other all the time. And I think that is essential. And out of it, some players are rising to the occasion. But you use the word moments, and that's how I always look at football. Because in all my life, I've never seen a team play 90 minutes of excellent football. Most of your memory is actually only about 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes of brilliance, and then you believe that was one of the greatest games you ever seen in your life. So I see football in moments. And yes, we have had moments of nice consistency, but we've had some moments where you wonder why you even practice.
To elaborate on that, something he asked you earlier concerning the team. My biggest thing with the team is endurance. I do respect that the camps that you did with them, great improvement, but it seems that there's still a slight issue with endurance when it comes to a full 90 minutes. Because the way I look at it, if you have to pick a team and then you have to look outside, and we have few to work with here, and then we have a 90 minutes to run with just what we have. What are you doing? What is in plans to work on their endurance at this time?
Well, as a national team, there's certain things you cannot address. We could have addressed the fitness somewhat going into the Gold Cup because we had X amount of days together, and we brought in Tobias Otley. He did a tremendous job with the players on an individual basis and on a collective basis. But national teams, you cannot address fitness, you cannot address technical weaknesses if you don't have the time. And going into the World Cup qualification, we're not going to have the time. We have to abide by FIFA dates. We have 4 days before we play a game, so we have 4 days together, and that's the FIFA law. And the players are going to have to come in at high levels of endurance. Now, mind you, there's 2 types of endurance. There's the physical part and there's the mental endurance. I think the mental endurance with players in Trinidad and Tobago needs a lot of work. And the players know that. We talk about it all the time. How do you manage being 1-0 down? How do you manage being 2-0 down? How do you manage being 2-0 up? And for me, this is directly related to your physical preparation, and of course how you take care of the ball when you have it. Because quite frankly, football without the ball is called running. And when you're running more than actually playing with the ball, then your physical endurance, so to speak, is being tested all the time. Kevin
Molino, should we expect to see him back on the team anytime soon?
No. I think it's a bad injury. He's well on it. He sent me a little video clip. Sean sent it to me of him on a weight machine, a weight bearing machine, doing some running. And he said, I'm on my way back, but the reality is it will take him some time, and we wish him well, but we'll have to enter this qualification without him, and maybe even without Hector.
Let me bring in Sean Fuentes, who has joined us. Of course, Sean Fuentes, as most of you would know, is the Director of Communications, at the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association. Sean, welcome. Sean, as someone who has been around all of the World Cup qualifiers that I know, what are your expectations as we head into the World Cup qualification game starting, of course, on November the 13th?
Good evening, Andre. Thanks for having me. At this stage, I can say I'm very optimistic, a lot more than I would have been even when Stephen Hart joined us prior to the 2013 CONCACAF Gold Cup. We were still up in arms about the progress and the rate at which we were progressing.
Just after we get knocked out against Guyana.
Well, exactly. Well, it was some months after, but still.
I remember because I was there in Guyana. Yeah, yes. I do remember. I don't want to remember, but I remember.
Yeah, yes, and heading into the Gold Cup, with new faces, he was there at the helm of the team. Leo Benaka just entered the fray again. But we didn't know where we stood within CONCACAF, and what has transpired over the past 2 years, I should say, is phenomenal. I think if you look back at where we were and the games that we've played and the progress that we've made, again, with an association that continues to face its own challenges, and Stephen Hart is really coming here, and I don't want to be being sung into bias or sung as though I want to favor him too much, but he really has done a hell of a job with the national team, and it has given us a level of respect again on the international stage, because at the CONCACAF Gold Cup this time around, and then even recently in Salt Lake City, the general international media, especially the Mexicans, they don't just look at Trinidad and Tobago as just an opponent that we're going to get by very easily, and that speaks volumes. We haven't experienced this, I think, dating back to the 2006 campaign. Back then people started to respect us. Then we faltered again so badly after that, and what we're seeing now is there's a lot of interest. Just recently we had a televisor crew from Mexico visiting Trinidad and Tobago to do a documentary on Trinidad and Tobago football because of the exploits of our national team in recent times, and that says a lot, I think.
They also come in to take notes, and don't ever feel, and they come in to take notes expecting Trinidad and Tobago. So we should have good thing to be in the last 6.
Well, the good thing is that we were able to schedule their visit while the team was outside of the country.
Fine, because I we know them. But Sean, as we go forward, of course, we know that this country, and I know Mr. Hart knows this too as well because he's a Trinidad and Tobago citizen. We know that this country is a country that will only jump on the bandwagon when things go good. We are calling on people, obviously, whether it be for the Trinidad Football Association to arrange a charter flight. I don't know, they've done it in the past, obviously, to arrange a charter flight for the game against Guatemala, because I've done it already. I've gone with them on charter flight, so you've been there too as well. And of course the home game. Tell us, I mean, what are some of the plans from the Football Association point of view in terms of doing incentives so that the team can get the support it needs?
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, a charter for the Guatemala game is already on the planning cards. Okay. We're even trying to see if we can get some supporters to go over for the Panama game on October 8th in Panama City. What we wanna try to continue the 12th Warrior campaign, which we adopted for the women's qualifying game last year, and I think. Now the TTFA has a very small marketing team that is very vibrant, and through the support of FIFA as well, we are going to try to drum up that support for the campaign through the launching of our merchandising program, where you're going to get anything Soca Warrior that you can think of to be able to support this team, and of course the funds again.
So the jerseys will be, because the last time, if I remember rightly, I think Roxanne was here with me, most of the jerseys were sold out. Right by the time the game came out. Came around.
So now we have a new set of shirts. Obviously, the new kit is now available at the TTFA offices, at Fan Club, at Fan Zone, and at the Trini Lime shop at the airport, as well as at Trin City Mall. And there's a new line of merchandise, casual wear as well. So if you only want to wear the Trinidad team kit, you can get baby tees, you can get vests, you can get round neck t-shirts, shoes, slippers, Soca Warriors branded. That we're trying to again the support from this, the funds from this will go back into the national team. So obviously it's going to help us going forward. And we've already kickstarted the campaign for the USA game on November 17th. We have some trailers on social media and on national TV as well. And we have not set prices as yet for these for the match tickets, but we expect that. From very early in October, you're going to get a full campaign to support this national team, and we want to sort of brand the campaign Warrior Time Is Now, so that people can realize that we don't want to wait, as you rightly said, until the team enters the hex, but it starts now. We have to get behind these players. We have to be the 12th Warrior.
No, he answered my question, I was going to ask him. He answered it one time.
All right, good. Mr. Hart, how important is the 12th man going to be?
Call me Stephen, please.
Stephen, all right, Stephen. Sure.
Call in Sean. You call me
yeah. Well, I mean, I and Sean Greg almost go back a long time. Yeah. Right, that's
Even though I'm a bit younger than he is.
Just a bit, only a bit. But all right, but go ahead.
I think I was talking about. I sat down with, I don't want to call names, but I sat down with David Nackett yesterday watching the colleges game, and the lack of atmosphere was the biggest thing for me, and I think we not only need the 12th man, but we need a genuine crowd support. I mean, when we played Mexico in that game, Baba Charles was sitting down next to me, and I'm trying to talk to him, and I have to get in his ear to talk to him. I mean, it's so loud, and there's no rhythm section. They're just pushing their team. They're just pushing their team forward, and even in Salt Lake, which was only 20 something thousand people, but the stadium was on top of you. There was no running track, and it was so loud. And when they were down 3-2, the crowd, every time the ball went wide or they got a free kick, the crowd was just sucking that ball towards the net. And I think that is extremely. I think we've lost that. We've sort of lost that. Yes, it's nice to have the rhythm section. We just kind of depend on them to create the atmosphere. But I think when you hear the roar of a crowd, you really feel that people are pushing you on. That we need to do this. Yes, we can do this. And hopefully that would be there come qualification.
Sean. Director Sean, why do you think we've lost that? I mean, we had it before. But why?
I think we had it before to some extent, but when in comparison to the Mexicans and even the Guatemalan team, the Guatemalan fans, I mean, it was a big difference, and I think it's something that we have to know. We have to teach our local fans about this, and you raised a good point with regards to the rhythm section, because we also plan to we may possibly have rhythm sections at our games, but we're going to cut it down in terms of the size of the band, and we're going to partner with a local group. You might have heard them before. They've been at all Central FC games for the league, and we've had discussions with these guys. We're going to ask them to expand their group a bit.
The Bassi Boys.
Pardon me?
The Bassi Boys.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's what team.
So we're going to have them there, and they know all of our players, and they can make up lines of each of our players within a minute time or seconds, and they're going to be there to kind of drum that support. We don't know where we're going to position them, whether it's going to be main stand or in the uncovered, but we want to use that, as Stephen said, to get that sort of vociferous support in the stadium and not just the
well, hopefully the stadium is full, it could be all over.
Exactly, have them in
I think
that's really a good idea, because I go to all the Pro League games and I'm a Central fan, and I sit with them literally. I don't go in the media booths. I sit with them because they bring that vibes.
Exactly.
They literally push Willis, or they will sing songs of individual players. They have their own little anthem for the players.
They've already come up with a name for the group. They're going to call themselves the Red Army.
Yes.
Okay.
To try to be that support.
But I think if you look at all football, they have designated people that are there to chant on the team, to make that section of their crowd start to. They actually sit with their backs to the game with a megaphone. You see them in Germany, and they just hype the crowd up, and that might be something we
because our crowd is noticeably quiet.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Landon Donovan at length about that, and most of the players from the United States and stuff, they enjoy coming here because they're not intimidated. It's a festive atmosphere in the stadium, and they're not intimidated by the crowd whatsoever.
I remember Sean would have been there because Sean was there all the time. When Trent Brigo was playing against El Salvador, we traveled to El Salvador, right? We would have entered the stadium almost, I'm not lying, almost 2 hours before the game started. I'm really not lying. But maybe they understand the kind of fans. They have like cages. It's like a cage.
Yes.
They like a cage. Yeah. And I'm not lying. These men were jumping on the cage and shaking the cage 2 hours before the game. And I watching this and I saying, if they're doing this now, right? They not start. So when Trinidad and Tobago went 2-0 up and they could be comfortable, it was not comfortable. We were 2-0 up.
And look what happened,
and we 2-0 up. We threw away a penalty, would have been 3-0, and that energized them. They changed. They like that. They were done excitable. They get crazy now.
That's intimidating.
I'm telling you that we in the commentary booth and I feel the intimidation. And I saying, wow, we don't have that atmosphere.
Of course. So again, what it shows is that what we have to develop for home, but it's an important point that you raised there, because I think these games, now that the national team is getting away from home, is also preparing them for these qualifying games that are coming up, because playing Mexico in Salt Lake City was like playing in Mexico City. And again, some of these players who have not been accustomed to that level, I mean, Kenwin Jones is the only surviving member from 2006 campaign. We didn't have that amount of qualifying games in the previous 2 campaigns because of we were eliminated earlier, and these guys now are getting a chance to feel what it is to play out, and it's going to serve us well, I think, come the qualifiers.
I'm still going to call it Mr. Hart. Looking ahead now, in terms of, let's look ahead now. We've got a reasonably young team. When you look at some of these players, what else is needed, you feel, besides match practice? You spoke about the mental aspect of the game. How are we going to get into their mind? Because that's an important point. Several times we watch games and we tell ourselves, why is it that the Trinidad and Tobago player is not able to adjust as quickly, it appears, as sometimes as the opponent? Maybe to a change in formation, maybe the opponent, because recently I was watching Manchester United. I don't like the word Manchester United, but anyway, watching Manchester United. I know that's one of Sean teams. Manchester, I know that is Sean team, right? Manchester United play against Swansea, and Swansea made a change, a formation change, and it seemed as if Manchester United were caught on the back foot. And I'm wondering, how can we get our players to think faster? Well,
I mean, you really and truly you can't. It's environment, right? Larry Holmes used to be Muhammad Ali's sparring partner, and it's no coincidence that he became a world heavyweight champion, right? The environment basically built him. So you find that there's different levels of football. Of course, there's the top leagues, and then there's the teams that play consistently in the Champions League. If you are playing at that level all the time, your brain, right, your nervous system is trained to adapt as quick as possible. It's like a combat soldier, right? So you are constantly switched on. Someone like Messi has seen everything: man marking, a right footer marking him, sending him inside, 2 defenders, 3 defenders. He has seen everything, right? So it's very hard for you to surprise him with something. I'm just using that as an example. Of course, he's a genius. But on a team level, it's the same thing. You know, you learn to assess situations as they're going on, and you say, hey, they're pushing on 3 now, you know, let us do this. And then you need leadership. You need people who can command each line on the field. So your back line has to have a leader that communicates it. Hey, this is what they are doing. We need to do this. And then talk to the midfield, and you make the adjustments. Because for us, as coaches, we have halftime. Right? Other than that, we're screaming our lungs out to the nearest player on the sideline to try and get that information to the rest of the team. And sometimes that player is too busy playing. He cannot really pick up on what you're saying. It might be a little bit too complicated or too much. And we've seen Jose Mourinho actually send a note on the field. He tells a player to go down. The physios pretend to come on and look after that player. But he sent a note on the field to John Terry.
Greatest
right?
CFC. That's so good.
But you know, it's a complicated situation, and it's one where you have to have experienced it over and over again, and it becomes just part of your nervous system.
In terms now of the Tobago team that we have right now, and you mentioned, of course, the aspect of practice matches and training, and of course the fact that the new league has started in Trinidad. Are you seeing enough young players coming up through the ranks to challenge some of these players that we have? You mentioned the average age at about 24, 25, you said a little bit earlier. Are you seeing enough young players coming through the ranks?
I think we have some talent. I was at the under 20. I didn't get to see the Pan Am games, obviously, because I was in the Gold Cup, but it's largely the same sort of players, and then there are a few older players that definitely have some quality. The problem with Trinidad and Tobago at the moment, from a development standpoint, is that our young players are going to the qualification tournaments to get experience. And actually, funnily enough, I sat down with one of our national youth coaches today talking about that. Whereas you should have been prepared to enter the tournament, and then when you enter the tournament, you're there to qualify, right? That's the end of the story. So to answer your question, yes, they have some players that have some good talent. Whether that talent can transfer itself to an international level, at the moment, would require them to be playing at a decent level consistently, and they should have been with national programs that were playing international games on a more consistent basis. At this time, where you only have roughly a game or 2 games going into the qualification, I think there are a few players that can challenge, but it will all depend on how much they play in the Pro League and what their form is like.
So we're coming back to the vexing topic of funding. Does that continue to be the biggest bugbear? And I say funding in many folds. Funding in terms of funding for the team, so that the team can have practice matches, whether they be at the under 17 or the under 20 or the senior team level. Funding in terms of payments of salaries, whether it be coaches like yourself or the players. Is that still funding in terms of corporate Trinidad and Tobago coming on board and assisting the team? Is that the major problem right now?
I would say yes. The major problem, yes, is funding. And how it has an effect is that you have let's say young players, and these young players have to learn a lot of things, how to carry themselves in the hotels, how to eat, how to rest, how to recover, how to train, and this requires experience by playing in tournaments where they can physically observe it. And then, of course, once they are indoctrinated into that and they start to develop their playing habits, they come to the national team already prepared. And then you have, on the senior level, you have to have funding to do what is required. I mean, right now, and it's no secret because I've talked about it in the newspaper, we're training players by the old-fashioned way. when we went to the under-20 tournament, Guatemala, Panama, United States, they were all wearing GPS, and they could give you a full rundown on their players on every single training session, what they are doing. But I mean, I right now, I could not tell you what if my midfielders are running anywhere close to the number of kilometers that they're supposed to be running in a game. I'm just going by eye, and I'm depending on my staff. And we should have this sort of scientific information available to us. But it costs a lot of money to have a unit. For example, I think it would cost us about $50,000 US to have a GPS for each player to train with, and we simply don't have the money. And we're not going to cry about it. We don't have it, so we go about as best as we can. But the opposition will. You could bet your bottom dollar Guatemala and United States are going to be training with it, and we're slightly behind in that sense.
So why does Stephen Hart continue doing this job?
Well, I took the job knowing the challenges.
Did you know that payment of your salary would be delayed so long?
Well, I've been paid, so.
All right. No, I said delayed. I didn't say it was not paid. I said delayed. I didn't say delayed.
No, I think there's some ups and downs and there's some challenges. But when you go into a job and then you have a staff that believes in you, and then players, you see them doing everything possible, because right now, let's be honest, there are a lot of players playing for Trinidad and Tobago that Trinidad and Tobago needs them more than they need Trinidad and Tobago, right? So you're now in a situation where when you see that, you say to yourself, okay, we've started something, let's see this through to the end, and believe me, the pressure from the family side, it's always very difficult, because you're away from home for a lot of time. But as I said, you take a job and you complete it to the best of your ability, and you go into the battle with the weapons they give you.
How long have you taken this job for?
Well, actually, the contract's up.
That's what I thought. So that's what I thought.
No, we've had discussion. There is a contract on the table. We need to just hammer out some details about the team. What programming. Let's just put it as programming. It's not just about me. It's about my staff. What about my staff? What about the players? Can all this be in place before we enter the first World Cup qualifying game? I don't want to go through any scenario where there's any doubt. And we've had those discussions. The first set of the discussions have gone well. Hopefully next week we will have some more, and hopefully by the end of this interview here, we would have some sponsors on board.
How which I really hope, honestly, from the perspective of the contract, how long is the contract on the table for? Meaning, what sort of period? 2 years, 3 years, or is it subject to qualification?
No, it's not subject to qualification. Okay. They've put a 3-year contract in front of me, and as we say, we're hammering it out.
From your perspective, as it stands right now, given the group that Trinidad and Tobago is in, Guatemala, the United States of America, Guatemala, and St. Vincent,
and Grenadines.
Well, yeah. Do you believe we can progress?
Yeah, I have to believe that, of course. I was sitting down today just calculating, how many points you'd need to get out of the group, because in a qualification like this, it's not important. You just need to get into the real meat and potatoes of the World Cup qualification. So you calculate how many points. You say to yourself, well, if you get 10 points, you should be okay. 12 points, you're definitely in. So yeah, I definitely believe it's possible.
What would I am jumping the gun because I believe it's possible too as well. But what would be needed now when we go into the next group, given that it's only the top 3 that progress, and of course the 4th place team has a difficult game, but only the top 3 progress? What would be different in terms of progressing from the X?
Andre, let's get into the X first.
No, I know, but I like to look ahead.
Okay. I think, of course, it becomes more complicated, more measured. right? You have three and a half places, right? So it becomes very, very measured. You have to really take care of your home games, and that's important. You take care of your home games. You win the away games when you can, but you try to come away with points. I think that is essential. If you have that sort of mentality, especially when you go away in hostile environments, you have a siege mentality, you stick together, you decide, listen, we want to come away with something here. I definitely think it's possible, because you have to remember, I would say that Honduras is at a rebuilding sort of stage in their program. United States and Mexico have traditionally been the dominant teams, even though people might look at Mexico's last qualification, but that had its own scenario being played out. This is something completely new. And then, of course, there's Costa Rica that has gained a lot of experience in the World Cup now that they've been there. And of course, you have Jamaica and Haiti and Panama, which for me is the sleeping giant in CONCACAF. But they too are going through a bit of a change. Right? So it's, for me, it's open. You can technically get into the top four.
Sean, in terms of going forward, from the Football Association point of view, what is the Football Association doing in terms of going out there and in terms of seeking additional sponsorship outside of the normal government channels?
Yeah. Well, I think what was important, the fact that the TTFA recently had its new constitution passed, and I think once we've put that in place now, what you're going to see happening is they're going to have some new divisions created within the TTFA. As I mentioned before, there's a new marketing team in place with the General Secretary Sheldon Phillips, and under the guidance of Raymond Timke, they're now able to in a sense get some breathing space. Again, as you know, everything depends on results, and I think the exploits of the national team in recent times is doing us a lot of huge favors going forward. And what we're seeing now is that yes, we have not been able to really nail a full-time concrete sponsor on a long-term basis, but people are expressing a lot of interest and optimism going forward. So, for instance, we're hoping that in time for this first home game against the United States, we have a couple major companies that have expressed interest. We've held meetings with them, and they want to come on board to support not just the national team, but as you rightly said before, all national teams across the board from development go right up. And I think now the fact that the general election is out of the way, and we now have a new government in place that is, better days are ahead for us. I think it's going to open new doors. But again, the challenge we faced over the years, it all comes down to results, and it's been very difficult to get a corporate T&T to understand and to believe in a program, in a long-term development program, and that is the challenge we continue to face. But hopefully, with people like Stephen Hart involved, and then we also have Kendall Walks as the director of football, and other people who are again facing these challenges on a daily basis and still going out there, that people will begin to realize that football has a future for Trinidad and Tobago. One thing I want to mention though, and this is a new challenge for us. In the past, we know the two major sports has been cricket and football. Cricket has been our biggest rival, and now you have a situation where athletics has joined the race. So you're facing challenges now where, for instance, if you have to go to corporate T&T or one of our major companies, you're now facing a competition from athletics and cricket to get behind people to get behind football. So that is something that we have to think very carefully about. But I think once the heads come together, and again, once we get closer to World Cup qualifying time, we're going to get that support. But again, we want to start now, as I rightly said. We don't want to wait until we're almost into the hex for corporate T&T to jump on board. As he mentioned, I'm not sure if it was mentioned on this particular program, but Panama, for instance, we look back at some of their campaigns, and when we last played in an Under-17 World Cup qualifying tournament in Panama, just for their Under-17 team program alone, they had a program that was in existence for over 2 years and funded to the extent of US $10 million just for their Under-17 program, and that started 2 years before the actual qualifying campaign. This is an Under-17 team we're talking about. For our senior team, we're yet to actually have a full-time corporate body And
I remember,
on
I'm sure you can remember, Sean, maybe it was just early 2000. We gave Panama what six or
right,
7 goals in the over.
Yeah.
And Gussie gets sent off and all in that game.
No,
right?
I think he got sent off in the Mexico
in
game.
the Mexico game, right? Sorry,
But,
yes, yeah.
I think Dwight scored a hat-trick in that game. He captained the team.
I mean, and I remember saying at the time we were commenting the game, saying this Panama, where they come from?
Well, I mean, you know, the bigger question is that they're investing in their football. Yeah. So you find that if you don't invest in your football, it manifests itself in the senior team because the product doesn't come through, and countries like Panama, the United States, and of course Mexico and Costa Rica, they've been investing in the football development model. Honduras as well, and it shows with their senior team, because if you look at Honduras, how many players they have playing in the Premiership, and then Panama have players playing in Argentina and Colombia and in the Mexican League, and so the investment cannot only be when you have achieved. In order to achieve, you need to invest, you know. But in Trinidad and Tobago, the word long term is not a good one.
Certainly not a good one. We could open up a telephone lines, people.
It's also a hamper, and it makes your decision even harder for you, because if they invest and develop the younger ones, then you would have a wider bunch to pick from.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but the pressure is on Stephen Hart, because Sean's point is right. If the team wins, corporate Trinidad and Tobago comes on board even quicker, unfortunately.
Yes.
They should come on board before, but unfortunately that's exactly what happened. I think the transition where people have seen the team draw 4 with Mexico, and then now 3 also, people saying wait, so if they could do it again, this team has
no fluke, right?
There's no fluke, basically.
Sean, I will talk to you after. We will organize something. We're taking no way.
All right, 622-3937, 622-3937. We're going to open up a telephone line and give you a chance to talk with Stephen Hart, the national football coach. He's here with us, as well as we've been joined by Sean Fuentes. But before we do that, you mentioned that you watched some of the football yesterday. In terms of as I've just seen some of the football on the television, what was your early thoughts in terms of the schools league? Secondary school league.
Some nice individual performances, actually. I mean, collectively, I really wasn't looking at that so much because it's the first game of the year. But some very nice individual performances, and I was quite surprised at some of the levels that were displayed.
How important is it, you feel, that league continue? Because in my opinion, that league has fallen off tremendously, the secondary, in terms of even support. No longer you see as much people attending the games as you mentioned as before, and it doesn't seem to get the coverage it used to get before as well.
Well, I think it's extremely important because it's a big part of our culture. I do think it needs to be reviewed and addressed in a different way. I don't see why the league cannot be played over way more months, and I know it's tied to education. But if a player comes from the Sporting Lisbon Academy, as Cristiano Ronaldo did, he trains for football 5 times a week, right? But he also has to do 40 hours of school a week. Right, that is mandatory for an academy football player. So it is possible, right? And if our intention is to produce footballers and to use the school system, we have to look at ways of extending the league. It's too short at the moment.
All right, we're going to go to the telephone. All right, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention on one of the games, shockingly, I heard that presentation dealt with Fatima 4-3.
That was today.
Yes, Liz must just. Are we going to the phone lines now?
We're going to open up a telephone line at 622-3937. We're going to give you a chance to talk with Mr. Stephen Hart and also Sean Fuentes. You can get into the program. And good evening.
Hello, good evening, gentlemen and ladies.
Good evening.
I like your discussion. Now, I have been thinking since you mentioned of the $10 million invested into the Panama under 17, we can now understand why they are a formidable team. Now, I want to find out something, and probably this should be going to Andre. In lieu of giving cash as a sponsorship, would the association be interested in being a part owner of a relevant product? I don't want to divulge too much at this time, and probably I can speak to Andrew on that. I think some time ago I spoke to him I just mentioned them with the product. But would the association consider that to be sold on your, is your internet or your product line? Would you consider that?
On the website. Yeah, of course. As a matter of fact, right now we do have a couple partners who are not necessarily giving us cash, but they're supporting the program. We have the HealthNet, the Caribbean HealthNet group that provides medicals for all our national team players, and they've joined a partner with us over a 2-year period. Medical services are valued at over $2 million TT. So again, these are things that sort of comes in handy for the national team. If you can give cash to support the team in terms of a long-term sponsorship deal, if you can provide in kind or in other means of assistance, we'll be willing to open discussions with you.
Okay, to whom do I speak? To whom do I speak concerning this?
Well, you can contact us at the TTFA head offices. You can reach us at 623-9500, and you can ask either for myself or the General Secretary, Sheldon Phillips, and we'll be very happy to open discussions or continue discussions with you.
623-9500?
Correct, that's right.
All right, sir.
Okay.
All right, sir. We're taking this seriously, and because when you come on this program and you make a pledge to support the national team, one indeed hopes that indeed it materializes.
So can we expect your phone call tomorrow? Who are we expecting? Who
I'm pleased about that, and I mean it's very interesting. I'll call you out tomorrow.
All right, great to hear.
All right,
thanks so much.
Thank you very much. All right, indeed, we're taking a few more of your calls at 622-3937. Remember, this is your team. This is our team.
Please turn down the volume on your radio. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Good night, Andre. Good night, Coach Hart. Good night to Sean. Good night, Roxanne, my fellow Chelsea supporter. But first of all, I wanna thank Coach Hart from the bottom of my heart, because I support, Andre, as you know, 3 teams really. I support Holland, I support Chelsea, and of course I support Trinidad and Tobago. So
you're going to a bad part with 2 of them.
Hey.
Well, I was going to play the different way. So I'll go into a good patch with only one of them.
Same thing, but go ahead.
I actually saw Coach Hart yesterday, because I was also at the game yesterday with the secondary schools league, and what I noticed is that with the young players that we have coming through, as he said, it's early in the season, so you can't really look for team cohesiveness and that kind of thing. But in terms of fitness, in terms of what the habits they have off the field and so on, I know that he said that he observes the players and so on. But with the qualifiers coming up, you're going to have like a 4 days, as you rightly pointed out, before the match. So even though you have the Panama game in October, it's like a whole month before you, or almost before you'll see the teams again. What measures you have in place? 2 things. One, in terms of monitoring our guys' fitness, particularly the ones playing abroad who you wouldn't see, and is there any scouting of the opposition? Because as Andre pointed out, when the Mexicans were down here, we can't really honestly think that they were just here just to do a documentary. They were really scoping out in terms of preparation for should they be meeting us next year.
Yeah, of course, scouting is essential. You can't go into games without scouting a team. So yeah, of course, that goes without saying. Anyway. In terms of myself, yes, it goes without saying. And we have the players have to report to our physical department, our medical department, and he keeps in contact with their clubs, and we sort of get updates on what they're doing and what stage they're at in their training, etc., etc.
Okay, thanks. And Andrew, if I can put maybe one more question. This one was Sean. Yeah. You mentioned that you're in the early planning stages for charter and stuff like that. That's of interest to me, because like Andrew, I chose at El Salvador. Unlike you, Andrew, I didn't have the safety of the press box. So me along with the other fans there were really scared. As I often tell my friends, it was the first and thank God only time I ever had to be escorted out of a stadium.
But I too, because all of us was together. I remember they put a line of police, and I said, wow.
Yeah, with the plexiglass and everything.
I said, wow, this is not good.
And as well as the other fans pointed out, he said, imagine we drew the match. Can you imagine if we had won?
Yeah, and we drew it. And Sean, I mean, do you remember they were rocking the
Oh yeah,
the
I will
bus?
never forget.
They
I will
were
never
rocking.
forget that.
They were rocking the bus, and I said, "Wait, we draw it. If we had really won that game, yeah,
Lord knows. But
God knows."
For Sean, what in terms of the charter and stuff like that? When will you all make an announcement, and how soon you think before you'll have something concrete in place?
Well, definitely for the game against Guatemala, we hope to have something in place by the middle of October. And we're also trying to get something in place for the Panama game, which is very early in October. So we're hoping that by coming closer to the end of this month or before that, we should have some details which we will post through the press and also through our social media pages. So you can stay in touch with us through those mediums.
Of course, and of course, speaking on behalf of the Warrior Nation, I know that in the past we've partnered with you also to do different things and stuff like that, so I hope the channels of communication will also be open.
Yeah, it's definitely there. We continue to have discussions with them, so we're hoping that, again, we don't want to wait because I think there was a little bit of an absence for the CONCACAF Gold Cup, so hopefully that we can have you guys back on board with us going forward into this qualifying campaign.
All right. Thanks, Emil, and thanks, Andre. Keep up the good work, Coach Hart.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hart, when you go forward and you see that the interest seems to be building, obviously, and results, obviously, is what is pushing. All right, let's go back and telephone line. I'll get a chance to talk.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
To Hart, Fuentes, lovely young lady. And so you talk about the 12th man. I only 71 next birthday. You can't get a 12th man when a game playing in Port of Spain and none of the teams on town. I from Santa Cruz. When you had a village game in Santa Cruz, let me say PPL, which is Darlington, and Brazilian, which is Cantaro, every house empty. PYM, Rafinos fall off a van with the excitement of football because Challengers playing Blackpool and South West is the whole around West, and Northeast is the whole of Montclair and all about. If you come later, they have a box. How we could get the 12th man? They playing a game, two side playing, and two of them not from the area. One from the area, and that's it. Then the next. Come on, sir.
No, but hold on. Well, hold on. We talking about Trinidad and Tobago, though. Everybody from Trinidad and Tobago. It doesn't matter whether they're from North, East, or West.
Yeah, but when you start, how would you get people to be enthusiastic?
Oh, so what you trying to say? What you trying to say that in terms of preparation? I mean, you want people to prepare by being nationalistic for the. Okay, I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree.
Take the football.
I understand what you're saying.
To the community, sir.
No, I think everybody here agrees with that, sir. Everybody here, but we also have to be realistic. We have important games coming up, so in the meantime, we have to identify that first and foremost, we're all from Trinidad and Tobago. Agreed?
I understand that.
Right, and if you are 70, you are 71 years old, right?
Yeah, I am not. I
so you're older than all of us here. Yeah.
Yeah, I am eager about the football.
All right.
But my grandson, we have no football where he lives in. He interested in football, and all the old people ain't going nowhere. I go and see two-kid game, college league long time. When you go on college league long time, and Cornell and Everett Cummins and all them for that playing, you have police and horseback. You ain't have police now watching a game.
No.
So the thing is, somebody must get the enthusiasm in.
No, and we agree with you, sir. We agree with you. But here, what I would suggest that you need to encourage your grandson to get involved in football. If your son or your daughter is not doing it, then you need to do it.
Take him to the US versus Trinidad and Tobago game.
You need to do it. You need to do it.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking the grandson from Santa Cruz to carry him up Cuba to watch no game.
Yeah, but you can't get a game
to play. No, but the Hazley Crawford is the national stadium. That's where the game is going to be played.
Sir, let me leave all of it. Somebody else want to talk.
All right.
I live in St. James. Just assume that I must have Liverpool from St. James. So my little grandson will get over the years to be enthusiastic about the football because he could go across by St. James for himself.
Understand exactly what you're saying, sir.
Right.
You remember? I don't think anyone know hockey in St. James on the police ground.
In the barracks. In the barracks.
In the police barrack, my dear sir. Hockey, Mr. Gentleman. I go in Osman Friend Street, and I running down the road to go home to make sure everything right, so I could walk out of Lucknow Street and watch the game.
Times change, sir.
Thank you, Salas.
Times change.
Right.
Thanks a lot. Times change.
He's looking at it from a smaller league.
I think he wants to see more community-based Pro League teams, perhaps.
But
I think there's nothing wrong with that, but at the end of the day, we talk about the national
team. That's
we talk
what
about
we're
the-
doing.
Maybe he tuned in late to the program.
We talk about the national team. Taking a few more of your calls at
You're so
622-39 and 37. But Mr. Hart, in terms of going forward now, here we are a situation whereby obviously the interest is going to build, obviously, as Trinidad and Tobago gets nearer to the World Cup qualifiers. From your perspective, when you return to Trinidad and Tobago, what you felt was going to be the greatest challenge when you returned to coach, I should say, to Trinidad and Tobago? What was going to be your greatest challenge?
Well, I mean, I used to be coming home almost every year for about a month,
right.
you know, and following the football very quietly. And I always felt that Trinidad and Tobago should prepare itself to enter a World Cup, which we have never really done. You know, we've had exceptional generations of players that were supposed to do it, and it never happened. And then the tail end of those generations actually got to the World Cup in 2006. But we never really prepare to go to a World Cup. There's no programming to go to a World Cup. So I felt, you know, in coming in, I would have 2 years in which to, well, I was hoping to have 2 years. I was quite aware that if the first Gold Cup, which I took the chance and came in, didn't go well, I'd have been out. But you know, I said to myself, okay, you will have 2 years to try and build something, which really and truly is not how it's done. But you'd have 2 years before you enter the qualification, and then hopefully you would run into a patch of, you know, of good form, of good moments, and you would get yourself into a fighting position to be in the hex. That was the plan. Right?
And from all right.
Hello, good evening. Good evening.
Hi, Mr. Hart. Good evening, Andre. Good evening, Sean. Good evening, Mama. I don't know your name.
Roxanne.
My son came back from America because he didn't born here. I bought him down here in your sport. He played his last year in school in Tranquil. He scored 13 goals in 2 months. He plays a little club football here. I would like to get my son. He's 18. He runs 10, 21 and 100. He's a striker. He plays at Central FC Reserves. I want to get my son to play this year, to come and show you some kind of display. So how could I get my son in the team for you to see what he has in case he has something to offer the team?
In all honesty, that cannot happen. I don't.
So how it happen?
No, because if he would, my advice, he would have to be playing for Central FC on a very consistent basis. That way, I could see him.
I only joined him the team last season.
Well, then you will see. Well, then Mr. Hart will see him in, because Mr. Hart watches most of the matches. So the objective of your son should be as much as possible to make himself a permanent fixture on the first team of Central. Once he does that, then Stephen Hart will have a chance to see him in actual play, and that's going to be the best method.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right.
That's actually what I was going to ask you. Yeah. There's a lot of, because I know a couple of the players within the Pro League. Last time you were there, you know, you went to scout players, and they were like, well, you know, how come we didn't get a little pick from Mr. Hart? How come Mr. Hart
play?
No, some of them played, but when I wanted you to they're listening, a couple of them will be listening, and of course the season has started back. What would you advise them, or what would you say to them that would make the difference? I mean, what are you looking for?
Well, I mean, first to begin, you have to assess the overall situation. I mean, how many games do we actually play? You know, so it's very unlikely that you're in a scenario where you can bring in players and experiment with a lot of players. We simply do not have the funding. I've been asking ever since I came in to have a sort of a massive local camp where we train for a number of days and then play some international games. But the reality is we don't have the funding to do that. And without it just means that usually I am going into a couple of international games and then straight into some sort of tournament, or which was the Gold Cup and/or qualification. So I mean, you can't pick everybody. You have to pick the team that you want to prepare to go into the tournament or the qualification. And it's unfortunate, but until we have a a funding structure that allows you to have proper programming, then it becomes difficult to see people at an international level. And really and truly, you only know if a player is going to perform for you if you could see them at an international level.
What would you say? Because obviously, this following from what Roxanne has said, a lot of players, everybody I believe who plays football in Trinidad and Tobago would want to represent Trinidad and Tobago. It's natural. But to do that, they're going to need, as you have quite rightly stated, to meet certain requirements. Whether it be obviously the first one would be to play for the first team of the respective club, and then their performance. But what else is possibly needed? Because even to the young gentleman who said his son has a lot of skill or ball skills, as the case may be, but the natural talent alone is not is what is required. Other things are required. What else? What other advice could you give to youngsters who may be 18 and 19? Maybe they won't be playing for Trinidad and Tobago in this World Cup qualification. Maybe next time around. But what else is needed from a youngster? Not just natural skill, because a lot of Trinidad and Tobago players believe they have natural skill. They could dribble the ball well.
I think that's only 50% of the entire equation, right? You have to have a certain mindset, a certain hunger, and a certain lifestyle. If you want to be an international player or professional player, you have to live the life of a professional. A lot of people feel a professional is someone who gets paid. And that's just part of it. You have to live a certain lifestyle. You have to spend a lot of time polishing your craft, your technique, working on your technique, and studying your position or potential positions that you play, and basically becoming a huge student of the game. And then on top of that, you have to be physically prepared. You have to, between 2002 and the last World Cup, the distance and the speed that players are traveling at has increased by over 20%, and that's not that long ago, right? So the game is becoming more and more physical, faster, and as players get better prepared due to science. So there's a lot of things that you need to do, and then of course you have to be playing, because good sprinters sprint against the best, and good fighters fight. So good football players have to be playing.
How would you describe, Stephen, as your coaching style?
Wow. I don't know. I better ask somebody else.
But nobody else here might know it. I don't know. Sean obviously will have an idea, but
I think it depends. I look at the quality available to me, and then I try to build a team based on that quality. Now there are certain playing principles that I like players to follow, and once I could get them to understand how those principles fit into the quality that you bring. Because you pick a player for what they can do. So when you put a player on the field, you know what that player can do, and how does that fit into the principles of the team that you are trying to build. I'm not in a position where if I'm struggling for a position, I could go out and buy somebody for that position. So usually you look for some qualities that the player have. That's what I do, and I build my team based on that. A lot of it has to do with how we possess the ball, how we play with the ball, in particular parts of the field, because there are certain parts of the field I don't want us overindulging in the ball, of course. And then how you recover the ball, for me, in the modern game is the biggest thing, because if you can't recover the ball, then you spend the majority of your time running. The basic sort of formula that we have is football plays for about roughly a top class game will play for about 57 minutes
with the ball on the field, right?
Yeah,
yes,
I think the average at the World Cup was only 52 minutes. Right, so if you could,
because most people watching the game
90 minutes,
90 minutes, but good point.
So if you could keep the ball for 50% of the 52 minutes, then you really only have to defend for 20-something minutes, right? So you want to be able to keep the ball for huge periods of time. And of course, when you lose it, you want to be able to win it. Better to win it closer to the opposition's goal, because that means you're probably doing less running. than to have to run back and defend your own goal. And I think that's the learning curve for us at the moment. Why teams like Mexico and such teams seem to have more energy is because they have more time with the ball. They have more time. They can rest with it. They could dictate how the ball is actually moved around the field and make you run. So that's basically in a nutshell what I am trying to achieve with.
So in the past people used to say that when previous coaches trying to be good would use the Dutch style, trying to be good use the Brazil style of football.
Hey, Brazil is good.
No, I prefer the intelligent style. Make good decisions. Make good decisions. Whether it's a short pass or a long pass, the decision is yours. I pick you to play the game. You know what the team wants to do, and the game belongs to you. I pick you to run the game. Now I'm very strict about positionally how we play and certain roles and responsibilities, because not everybody, it's not a jazz band.
Sure.
But you trust, you have to trust in the players, right? And those that can follow it, I think you get the best out of them. Some players find it a little hard to adapt, but that's in a nutshell is what I try to do.
You mentioned leadership. How important is that, and what are the leaders this team has?
Well, we have quite a few actually, but everybody leads in a different way. You have Kenwin and Jan and Kaleem that are they are vocal. And certainly Andre Buku coming out of England is extremely vocal. Sometimes
Yes.
sometimes he can get under the skin of players who are not accustomed to it. But they are leaders, and even when you don't select one of them, they are pushing the team all the time, both on and off the field, which is important. And then there are those that lead by how they play. You cannot, the infection of a Molino or a Jovain Jones, or so many of them, just by how they play, it's infectious, right? They lead by that. Marvin Phillip, for example, is an extremely quiet person, but in goal, you can tell by his actions that hey, I'm trying everything here to not let them score. It's time for you to stop the shots coming in. So everybody leads differently, and I think more and more the players are getting comfortable with leading each other and coaching each other. I'm not a big one for players cussing out each other. I don't think that has a role anymore. If there's a problem, I want the problem solved before we reach in the dressing room and start to argue why we had a problem in the first place.
And from your perspective now, a lot of people have said that, including myself, that the USA seem vulnerable at this stage, meaning that they have some relatively older players, some guys who've been there for a while. Is that a good thing for Trinidad and Tobago or not a good thing, meaning in terms of complacency?
I don't think they're vulnerable at all.
Okay.
I think the USA are missing Tim Howard.
Okay.
And for me, he is the difference in USA winning games and not winning games. The game against Belgium, I'll just use that as an example, is the single best goalkeeping performance I have seen in many years. Right? That game could have been easily 5 or 6. But once he is there, you will see a completely different USA, because the team now will defend higher up the pitch. They are far more comfortable that he's behind them, and you will see a big difference. The big difference right now is there's a lot of experimenting going on. They've used, I can't tell you how many players. So Klinsmann has been doing a lot of experimenting. But I think come World Cup qualification time, he's going to know his best team. Tim Howard will be back, and they will be a team brimming in confidence.
What's the strength of the Trinidad and Tobago team right now?
The team.
The entire
Mental,
team? The team.
Physical, the team, the entire team.
I think it's a team of players that believe in each other. There's no one person more important than the other. The team has a good camaraderie, both on and off the field. Like every other family, we have our moments. But the team is a true team.
It's not so easy though. So what's the weakness of the team?
The team. Because if you don't, anytime that belief drops, then you weaken the weakest link in the team. The lion doesn't hunt the strongest zebra, right? They go for the weakest one. So when someone is not having their day, you have to gather around them, support them, and bring them back up. You don't bring them down. They're already being down by the opposition. So the team, once they stick together and believe in each other, they will do well.
Sean, before we go, again, a message to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm going to let Mr. Hart end, obviously, to the people of Trinidad and Tobago about what is upcoming and what they can look forward to.
Yeah, well, definitely. The first thing on the cards, the main thing on the cards, I think, for the rest of the year is these two qualifying games. Second game being at home, November 17th, at the Hasty Crawford Stadium, Trinidad and Tobago versus USA. We're on the road to start the campaign in Guatemala City. Prior to that, we have the Panama game on October the 8th, and right now we're working on possibly getting a second warm-up game to be played in Trinidad and Tobago here. I think now, as Coach Hart rightly said, there's a lot of belief in the team from within the team, and that is important. And if we can extend that to outside of the team now, and we can get people to see what this team is trying to achieve and the circumstances in which it's been going through over the past few months and trying to get there, there's going to be that sort of attachment to the team in terms of people realizing now that, hey, we don't longer just have to depend on some special advisor or some great player from the English Premiership to lead the team forward. There's a lot more that this team, a lot more ingredients that this team has now moving forward, and it has an association behind it as well that again continues to face its challenges. But I think the effort is there and the belief is there, and we just want to say to Trinidad and Tobago to rally behind this team. It's going to be a very long campaign ahead, but it's definitely not beyond us.
And of course, as we would have heard from one caller before, if people are interested in getting involved in terms of marketing, in terms of obviously giving sponsorship, who you said it's a small group, obviously, but who should they contact?
Well, obviously, you could always feel free to contact maybe the president of the FA as well as the general secretary, Sheldon Phillips. Kyle Lee Kwai is also on board with us as part of the marketing team, and you can contact us. I'll give you my direct number, 681-5429. You can reach me anytime, or you can reach us at the association offices at 623-9500. And again, we are always willing to hold discussions, open discussions with people who really want us to be part of the campaign and be part of this effort.
So as we go, a message to the public, first to corporate Trinidad and Tobago, a message from your perspective to corporate. We're not going to take any more calls, people, no more calls. A message to corporate Trinidad and Tobago first.
Well, we need you. There's no doubt we're going into a World Cup campaign. Of course, a World Cup campaign is a lot of exposure from a business standpoint, so it's in your favor whether you're a football fan or not. It's not important. It's a business opportunity, but of course we need you, and we have to remember that the game, the national game, means a lot to the people, and especially the young people. So your investment is beyond football. It's an investment in young people and giving them an avenue to express themselves and be out of certain social conditions. So it would be great to have your support.
And now a message to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the 12th man, the 13th man, whatever, 12, 13, 14, 15, all the men.
Yeah,
and women.
And women.
I said women.
Take long.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think it's extremely important that you support. You have to believe right through, even when things are going bad. You have to believe. And I remember talking to a fan once in Mexico, and we were going to see an Atlas game, and he said, "Hey, we support Atlas even when they win." So you have to. But that's the kind of belief. What you're saying is that you have to believe that your team is going to turn it around, and if they're on top, you have to believe that they're going to stay on top. But you have to give the players that sort of support. They've got to feel it. It's infectious. They've got to feel the love, and then they will perform for you.
And of course, can we believe that Stephen Hart will sign the contract as well? Can we believe? Because you're asking us to believe, and you see, unfortunately, a lot of the belief, this is my opinion, right? A lot of the belief on this team will stem with you being there, obviously, because I think there is a general feeling, at least, and this time around, that based on how we have seen the team perform, because Trinidad and Tobago, and I mean, Sean and I have been here before, we have seen Trinidad and Tobago start well and always seem to just fall off. But we have seen a lot, a little bit, let me use the word resolve. The resolve of the team has seemed to be stronger, which is a good thing in my opinion, obviously, because resolve would mean that the team is not only playing well, but thinking about playing well as well, and adapting to situations. And I think that is resilience, resolve, all these R words are being used here right now. And so going forward, I think you sign on the dotted line. So Sheldon Phillips, no doubt is listening, because he always listens. And Raymond Tim Key, well, he might have time now on his hand, because he does not have to fight a sports minister, so he may have time to listen now. So therefore, going forward, one hopes that indeed what you have asked for will indeed be sorted out within the next 2 weeks.
I'm confident everything is going to work out. And as I said, we'll know by next week, and the talks have been good. I just need to know what you are giving me, so that I can plan my business, and the players are comfortable with what is going to be offered to them, and we get on with just playing the games.
And tomorrow work continues. You said you'll be down watching the start of the Pro League tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that game.
Doubly Connection Central.
I'm excited that the league has started, because it gives me something to
what time is the game tomorrow?
The game is at 7 p.m. at the Atto Bolden Stadium in Kufa. People, you need to get down there. Of course, Doubly Connection, 3-time holders of the Charity Shield, but then they're going up against the 7 titles of the Central FC squad from last season, my team, the Sharks. And we have defeated them many times. It doesn't matter, different coach, but you have to remember, Connection is pushing forth a very
Central
young
FC
team right now.
Under crowd, a different coach.
Team.
We
have a seasoned squad. We have Guerra, Plaza, Jean-Michael, national players, may I say?
And the ownership, management, sponsorship, many crowds around Central.
I have spoken to my coach, and the feel and the vibes of the team behind the scenes of comfort.
All right, so that game is on tomorrow at 7 o'clock. The national football coach will be there as well. Stephen Hart at Bolden Stadium. Dexter Skeen will be glad that we're doing this for free. I don't know, Dexter. This is for free.
I just throwing this out there. You can pay attention to Mr. 11 and number 11. That's my player.
Champions League matches next week as well.
Yes.
Two back-to-back games.
For W Connection.
He's going to be in town.
LA Galaxy against Central. That's a all-in. And I'm all in on the cards there for Central, unless they turn something drastically wrong.
Mr. To organize my passes, please.
Yeah, well,
please, I don't understand you.
But LA Galaxy is going to be an important game. So Central has 2 important games back-to-back, basically.
One day W.
And W Connection
as well.
I got.
Two back-to-back games at the Hazy Crawford Stadium.
All right, so it all starts tomorrow at 7 p.m. We want to thank, certainly. We want to thank
it's a Wednesday and Thursday.
Stephen Hart.
I'm going to do it live from the game. We can do this live from the game.
Which one is played on Thursday?
I think is the W Connection game is on Thursday.
That's okay. We take that too.
That's a better game.
What?
In terms of a game.
Before we lose Andre tonight.
The last time I saw LA Galaxy play Central, LA Galaxy were playing their 3rd team. And I think they won about...
Listen to me.
Listen to me. Because some of the guys on that team...
Understand this. Double Connection, who has featured in the CONCACAF Champions League and played on this field before, I've been getting like 4-0. At least my team hold off to 1-0 against some superior form. This is my debut. I will not have you speak about the Sharks like this in my presence.
Well, let's hope it doesn't happen next week Wednesday. That's for your sake. When you come here Thursday.
Mr. Fuentes, like my passes, please. I am also media.
So thank you very much, Stephen Hart. And don't forget, come out and support Team Trinidad and Tobago. We're even calling on corporate Trinidad and Tobago. But remember, tomorrow, why not join Stephen Hart, Sean Fuentes, and Roxanne down at the Atto Bolden Stadium. 7 p.m. kickoff. W Connection against Central FC. It's a battle for the first title of the season. My pick is W Connection. Good night. Good night.
Yes, you?
I sent